everybody, and welcome to our first episode of Season 4 of Life's Learning Curve. Season 4. Wow. We're glad to have you here. If you're new to the podcast, well, you're here for a great episode on a great day today. Let me tell you, what is Life's Learning Curve? My guest and I retell stories of how we became the best us. Throughout our lives, we accumulate these people, these experiences, and from these people and experiences, we have good things happen. We have bad things happen, positives, negatives, successes, failures.
A composite.
This podcast is about putting all these stories together and determining just how we are trying to become the best person we can be. Life's Learning Curve. Question: how did you fall into your career field? Did you choose it? Did it choose you? Or was it kind of fate? Well, one of these options happened to me, and it changed my entire life. So let's find out. Sebastian.
All right, here we go.
Life's Learning Curve. I'm Paul Hart. Episode Shortest Line. Misguided Success. Stand by.
Yeah, our Ed is going into dentistry.
Yo, Joan is going into nursing. Yeah. Our boy Steve is going to study law. A lawyer. What's your ball going to do?
Me? Well, at that age, I had no idea. Totally stifled by my choices. It would just turn out I was one of those people, those kids out of high school whose career had just not even been invented yet. Oh yeah, we heard all about that in high school. Maybe your career hasn't been invented yet. How do you work with that? But it hadn't. Things would change, and things would begin to surface at just the right time. You know, when I was in my teens, my mom always told people,
Paul might not know what he wants to do right now as a career, but let me tell you, when he finds that niche, he'll go at it with all he's got.
I'm glad she had so much confidence in me because I probably didn't. I didn't know where I wanted to go, which direction, what might I be good at. It's important to open with that line my mom had said today because I really just didn't believe her. I thought she was just parenting, a son who had very specific interests in odd, quirky areas like studying film or writing stories, cartooning, illustrating, music, writing music. I love sports. But deep down, I felt like I was probably not really qualified to excel at any of these things to make a difference. Thus, I spent my first 2 years of college taking mandatory general courses, gen ed courses. I knew in my junior year of college, the third one out of 4, I would have to commit to a major. I declare
A major.
So there I was. I was in my junior year of college. It was just prior to it. I was at Northern Illinois University, and I had to finally declare my major. I had to decide that year. College had been such an investment for my family. It's something that my parents budgeted and saved for my sister and me for years and years and years. They were very careful with their money. So a lot of thought went into what I would do, especially by me. And my parents, of course. They made suggestions, but they didn't push me into an area. My mom and dad both were in education, and so that was where they had come from. So they knew a lot about that arena of things. Probably less about business, but more about teaching and education. I had been a journalism major when I began college. I loved to write, but I had been talked out of it by my professors at Eastern Illinois University. See the podcast episode called Eastern Nights for more on that.
It's a dying profession, Paul.
My professors had told me at Eastern. And as far as my parents went, I appreciated the fact that they were in education. I never really wanted to go into education, though. Why? Well, with a great feeling of satisfaction, my parents and my sister all had gone to college to become educators. My parents wrote out their careers as a principal,
Administrator,
coach, and my mom being a teacher and doing lots of other things with music. My sister, on the other hand, had an opportunity after several years in the classroom to move on into administration, which was great, but she then went into this budding new business outside of education and left education after about, I think it was around 7 years. So my sister Sue began to excel in business. Somebody stepped away from the mold. Now, I always felt that I needed to break free of the family direction in education. But let me tell you, boy, was I wrong. The shortest line. How I actually chose to be an educator is an embarrassing story, and I'll tell you why right now. Not really wanting to teach, but rather break away from the classroom that kept my brain captive for my first 2 years in college. Now, beginning of junior year, still summer, I had to declare a major. It was a hot afternoon in late July, registration day. On that day, my roommate Mike and I walked to the Northern Illinois University Student Center to sign up for our classes. As I said, it was a very hot and very humid day in the Midwest. Registration was being held outside in front of the building, and I'm sure that decision was made because inside, the heat and humidity was just too intense. As Mike and I stood there in our uber cool new clothes, they were stiff and itchy, remember that? Our 1980s clothes, the sun beat down upon us. Remember the first time you put clothes on, it's kind of like stiff and it's kind of itchy, and if it's hot out, it's just not a comfortable feeling. Some of the registration lines I noticed immediately were very long and weren't moving too quickly. Mike went right to the graphic arts department line to sign up for his classes. He knew what he wanted to do. I respected that. I envied that. Mike's ability to commit to a career decision was amazing to me. How did he do that? However, I still had no idea, and I was standing there about to register. But this was the day. This was my last chance, my final minute to choose my life's direction, it seemed like, at least. I stood there still pondering every career direction I might go. I had spent 2 years of college trying to determine where I might be solid, proactive, passionate, a good career to move into. I thought about it constantly. Nothing. I stood there and I saw nothing in which I had an interest or passion. I wasn't lazy because, yes, I did want to work. I did want a college education. I just didn't see anything that flipped my switch, I guess. Flipped my switch. As I watched Mike finish up his class registration, he began to walk back toward me, about 30 yards away, I'd say.
All done, man.
Paranoid, I felt. Befuddled, I felt. I did not want to be caught undecided. So in a knee-jerk reaction, I stepped up, I moved, I looked quickly, and I stepped into the shortest, only open available line at registration. A place no one was waiting.
Hi.
Elementary education, K through 8th grade. I signed up, and I chose my career all due to 1, the heat, 2, my inability to choose, and 3, most important, it was the shortest line.
Yep.
True. Inexperienced. When I began teaching after college, I truly believe not too many people I worked with had a lot of confidence in me. I was really new, really inexperienced. Instinctively, I always used humor in the classroom, always, but I was not a strong teacher yet. And I struggled. I was hit or miss on most days. I did have some great mentors. My parents, they both were in education, had a lot of years of experience, and always gave me a direction to go when I asked them questions. However, on site at the school, I did have an experienced mentor just across the hall, and he was a great mentor for me. He later became a very good friend as well. Don Buck. True name, real name, he's a good guy. Don oversaw me and helped me as I kept working on my rough edges, and I had a lot of rough edges. He helped me in a manner that I could respect. He wasn't in your face saying wrong, or do whatever, but he was very subtle about what he said, so I could respect that. I still knew I was sinking. Technology found me. But it was in my third year in the classroom. My career found me. And it was just at the right time. I needed this. And it came from nowhere. That was the year education trended by adding technology, more technology, things like computers, computer programming in basic language, and the video camera I spoke of in a podcast I did a couple back called Captain Video. The education landscape started to fill with these technology tools. I was excited about technology. I love this. I volunteered to pilot as much technology as possible for the school district and for the school itself. Just a handful of teachers were bold enough to take on these new innovative learning tools. Boom! It was like a shot out of a gun. I love technology, it turns out, and I loved what it did. I saw how students engaged in it immediately and found it quite different.
We get to use computers.
It
I love this.
brought kids into learning that sometimes did not commit. It was that point in time my students and I really took off on this creative adventure into learning, and this propelled me to places I never dreamed for the rest of my career, and even after my teaching career. I was excited. It excited my students too. I had accidentally found my hook, my niche. During these years, being one of the first to bring that kind of technology into classroom learning, I found myself growing uber quickly, learning uber quickly, and evaluating what I was doing on my own, outside my own perimeters. I didn't even expect this from myself. I wrote articles for a monthly educational technology magazine, and I had a column in our local newspaper on educational advances and school integration of technology. That's a mouthful. And I also did public relations, showcasing other teachers, what they were doing as well. I also was part of this team that had written a grant, and we brought video cameras into the classroom at the 5th grade level, and we trained everyone in the school district at that level.
Project Kids Vid.
So back then, our shows were seen. They were read about in the newspaper. We had a local television channel where we could put some of our work. And this was prior to the internet. And so everyone back then watched TV and somehow found our content. Saw you on TV last night. That used to be a pretty big deal back in the day. Not so much anymore, but being on TV, not just me, but the students and that type of thing, that was a big deal. People were out there finding our content that we had made at school. I was in at the advent of website creation as well, when the internet did fire up. I did website development for over 15 years. This is all kind of technology, all kind of creative, all kind of applicable things to the classroom. And to me, it was all quite fun, especially to watch the kids engage in this. I was excited. They were excited too. We all were kids in this situation. And working with technology never wore me out. Didn't wear me down. It just kept me moving forward. Literally jumping out of bed on a daily basis to get going. That's a career. Technology was misunderstood at the very beginning, and I need to tell you, at first our administrators would tell us things like they wanted us to teach technology. Let's teach it like a subject in a curriculum. I didn't do that though. Every time I did that, it became a chore, and it didn't seem necessary. What I wanted to do, and I had seen great success, was when the students used technology as a tool to enhance their education, their learning. Whatever we were studying, you use the technology to get you there. For example, in life, to use a pencil, you don't have to know how to build the pencil. You just have to use the pencil. technology is the same way. Wendy. Here's where I want to stop and tell you a story about a student. Now, there have been so many great ones along the way, and each student has some individual, unique thing about them. But Wendy, this is about a quiet, little, highly curious 11-year-old girl, and her name was Wendy. She was well-behaved, funny, bright, and she was learning curious, I'd say. Wendy quickly and efficiently took off in our classroom, programming in what they used to call Apple Basic commands, which allowed the programmer to input simple code to draw this chunky, square, pixeled image in full colors. Back around 1985, this was a really cool thing to take new technology like a consumer computer and make it perform a drawing in which you created with code. I've got to say, it's not really super important that kids learned how to do programming when they were in 5th grade, but it was something different. And that something different oftentimes can take you in a different direction in life. And that's what happened with Wendy. Wendy was creative. Wendy was bright, and she created quite a few grid drawings that year and was very engaged in the process. She even helped me teach other students to program in BASIC. Wendy's talent extended in a video show we wrote that year called Ready or Not, featuring the character traits of failure leads to success and patience. Now, Wendy grew up, went to university, and found herself eventually working on the West Coast for a large computer company beloved by many. And in recent years, all grown up, married, and with a family, Wendy communicated back to me pretty recently, telling me that the program on my smartphone that I use, my smartphone, that creates music-filled moving slideshows out of personal photos. Hopefully that'll make sense to you if you have a smartphone. That program was created by Wendy and her team at that computer company and was a nod to the work that we had done back in 5th grade 30 years earlier. A composite. I have never been so proud. And I need to say what's so very obvious here. In life, you never know how or in what ways you might affect another person. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Doug. Walk softly and carry a big camera, preferably a 3-chip camera. Now, back at school, my classes, technology projects and work projects were literally out there. They weren't just things we were doing in the classroom. We were in the news. Sometimes we were on the radio doing interviews, the students and me. And we were featured in journals and magazines and on the air within the media of television. And it's not that we were oh so good, it's that we were doing something new, kind of for the first time. And it was showing everybody else, hey, look at what education's doing right now. We were very proud of what we did. Now, back at my school building, I kept a low profile. I purposely was quiet. My projects for the community, the students, and education itself spoke for me. These videos or articles were always positive and proactive. They never went a negative direction. I always felt that showcasing the entire educational program and showcasing other teachers could only help us all in education. I can say that I could count on one hand other teachers that accepted or supported my program back then. So at that time, I did not really know if what I was doing was I was succeeding or I was floundering, or was I just something being trotted out in front of the media to show. I couldn't tell. Now, other teachers still looked down on what I was doing. So, from principals and from the media, they liked it. But other teachers in my building, whom I respected sometimes, usually, didn't support it. I recall that one particular teacher wouldn't even engage in a hello or a good morning with me when I would say that to that person.
Good morning.
There's nothing worse than saying, hey, good morning. Nothing. They just look at you and walk by. I just rolled with it. I grinned to myself and walked off. Knowing I had the support of my students, my parents, the community, and my principals, I just kept that in my back pocket and I continued forward as the horizon grew in technology. And I grew with it and added more to my program. Software changes, computer enhancements, kept going. Commencement speaker. I recall back when computers first were entered into the classroom, we began to have a 5th grade graduation at the very first school in which I taught, which I'll call Cerner Road School. Graduation had become a pretty big deal.
We're having a graduation.
Graduation took place at nighttime, which, if you're in elementary school, coming back out at nighttime is a pretty big deal. And we had kind of this faux graduation. It took place, which it really meant they weren't graduating anything, but they were moving on to middle school.
Moving on.
Then there was cookies and punch and coffee. I'd come for that. I was one of 4 teachers at the grade level in which I taught. Now, in the first 3 years, the other 3 teachers at the grade level in which I taught were asked to deliver the prestigious inspirational commencement speech, and they did great jobs. I watched each year as my other 3 teammates gave the commencement address. When the 4th year came, it was going to be me. I was excited, and I got prepared early. It would be my year to give this address, and I'd already written my commencement speech. It was about being excited about learning and lifelong learning and
Goals and dreams.
loving what you do, and I had 3 fairly good, affable stories to enhance my words.
Future.
But, to my surprise, on that 4th year, I was passed by. The honor was given to a 2nd grade teacher to speak. A 2nd grade teacher? What? It was at that point when I knew my peers in education had little confidence in me, and they wanted me to know that. So this is a way to underscore that for me. They showed me they didn't have confidence in me. And I have to say, being rebuffed, I had lost confidence in myself as well. The solution. I made a lateral change to another school in my school district in 2001. That unknowingly propelled me to another level. This school had broadcast facilities which reached every classroom. And the principal, which I've spoken of before, Dr. D, good man, asked me if I could develop something informational to be broadcast to the school. A good leader, I've always thought, a good leader will always try and find what your strengths are and then have you use those strengths. Well, I was doing some TV and things and writing and that. He charged me with that. Thus came a weekly program created by my students and me, which we called Good Morning Eastview. 7 minutes of fun, educational facts or themes
Weekly.
sewed together by a subtle backstory. It was assembled by 11-year-old student researchers, student writers, a student director, and student hosts. I edited the show. Being a once-a-week show, I learned how to cycle 3 shows at once to keep the flow going. Students completed their work and they really looked professional in the presentation. We used a lot of chroma key as well. That could be fun. We even had a stuffed animal mascot named Smokey the dog, who presented students with a subplot of problems to work out, such as Smokey went through things like bullying, jealousy, and friendship. It was so much fun. More on Smokey on another episode. The spirit of camaraderie. As things began to look up, I noticed a very even give and take back and forth between the teachers in this new school in which I was teaching. Everyone there did something unique or had some special talent, and that was because of the diverse mix of talent of teachers on the staff. And the staff had been put together by a very talented principal, Dr. D. Dr. D had put all this together, all these people together, and then he stood back and he allowed it to happen. Let us learn, let us grow, let us fail, right? So here we are. We're able to learn, share, succeed, and fail without being judged. Finally, it was unexpected. In the year about 2006, I was awarded a regional and a state award for my innovation and contributions to education. Now, at last, I had the state's educational leaders telling me what I'd been doing all this time in my career was all good, and yet it was very different, but very effective. I made my final years in education before I retired, ones where I got to showcase other educators, put them on TV, put them on the internet, and I showed their unique abilities. You know, it was just me sitting as a host and throwing it to them.
When you look, there's a lot of good people out there.
So what's my point? What did we learn today? What did I learn today? Well, after one or two false starts, I found my niche inside of education using technology as a tool. Kids seem to embrace this. I did too. I was as excited as they were. And me, I loved it, as I said, it probably even more than the kids did. So let me say, I loved what I did. I was always moving forward and learning the latest and the greatest and then applying it in the classroom and learning more and communicating more effectively. Lead with your strong foot, as they say. And I have to say, my time in education, in the classroom, as a career, surprised me. I was glad I had taken the shortest line on registration day back at Northern Illinois University, because that choice took me on a connective, engaging, personal journey of sorts where I got to create, share, and make change happen, all for the good of lifelong learning. For Life's Learning Curve, I'm Paul Hart. Subscribe to Life's Learning Curve at lifeslearningcurve.org and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser. Shortest line, misguided success of Life's Learning Curve podcast was put together by producer Sebastian T. Dog, executive producer Paul Hart, technical director Scott Baer, editor Paul Richards, audio and sound as always Riley Hart, production manager Heidi Cerner, studio equipment manager Dawn Compton. Find us on Facebook and listen to us just about everywhere podcasts are heard. And please do visit our website, lifeslearningcurve.org, and subscribe, read a blog, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. This episode has imaginative voice recreations to protect the privacy of others. Some names have been changed and characters conflated. Shortest line, misguided success, episode 58. I'm Paul Hart. We will be back soon with more guests and more stories from Life's Learning Curve.